Hello, friends. My name is Christina Grozik, and I am with the documentary Going Om, which is an exploration into the world of sound. And we really hope it inspires people to consider their relationship with it. So if you're looking for more information on it, you can always go to the website goingomfilm.com. And because sound and vibration and frequency and even silence are so important, we've decided to keep the conversations about them going. And today I am so excited to be able to connect with our next guest. We have Amy Camie with us, and she is just, she does it all, right? So, certified clinical musician, she is a holistic research developer, an author, a presenter across the country on the power of music. She is a classically trained musician. She's been playing for over 45 years, and she has had 2 journeys with breast cancer. So Amy, it is so good to connect with you today. Thank you for taking the time out. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for creating the opportunity to share these conversations.
Yeah, you have like energy's been such a big part of my life, and obviously sound and vibration and all of that, right? It's really guided me on my path quite a bit. But I will just say you have such remarkable energy about you. There's like this presence around you that it's beaming and radiating. So I'm really thankful to be in this space with you today. So yeah, thank you very much. And I know your journey with sound has been such a fascinating one, and making the link between music and healing. And I believe it started with a friend that you had that was in hospice, and then with your father later on, who you created a CD for to help him relax after a surgery. And I believe that CD, there was some research done with that CD, and how it impacted brainwaves here. So can you tell us a little bit about that journey?
Absolutely. So I'm classically trained, and when I graduated from Indiana University and moved back home, a family friend was going through hospice care. And I just had this insight to sit down and record some gigging music for her. And so one side was classical, one side was familiar music. She used it during her meditations, during hospice. And a friend of ours said, Amy, you could literally see Pat's body relax. And that was the very first time I had even considered music and healing. But a spark lit up, and I found a music therapist who helped design a 2-part questionnaire. So that was literally our first research study, looking at how do you feel before, how do you feel after. And what was interesting about that questionnaire was that people had noticed an impact whether or not they even liked harp music. So we were already addressing that question, do you have to like the music for it to be effective? But during that time, I met my husband and we were getting married. So I didn't do anything with that at the time. And then my dad was diagnosed with prostate cancer about 7 years later. And both of my parents are music teachers. So I knew that music teachers or musicians listen to music differently than non-musicians. They tend to analyze it and dissect it, and they have all sorts of relationships with it. But I knew my dad had no idea about New Age music. So I literally recorded New Age piano solos on the harp because I was also a pianist. So that CD is called New Love Awaken to Yourself. And my intention with that music was literally just to help him relax and heal after prostate cancer surgery. And as we were sharing the final CD, the response was just amazing from people. It's like, oh my gosh, I've had insomnia for years. I can finally sleep. And it was like, okay, well, this is really cool. And during all this, we met a neurotherapist here in St. Louis who was really curious about kind of the stories we were telling him. So he offered to do a pilot study, and he measured 5 people listening to the magic mirror. And we showed that it increased the alpha frequency and decreased the beta frequency in 4 minutes. And these were people who, some of them were left brain thinkers, some of them were right brain thinkers. And so we're like, wow, if we can relax and calm the brain in 4 minutes with one piece of music, then maybe we can impact the immune system. And so that was our first entree into this field of psychoneuroimmunology. And this was back in like 97, in 1997. So that's kind of how it all started.
And when you say measured EEGs, is that how they measured?
Right. They had
Okay.
the cap, and they did the quantitative EEGs measuring the brainwave frequencies. Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, that whole journey is fascinating, and I love when you can see the screen for the EEGs and you see all the spikes and you're like, "Oh, where's that one at?" You know. It's
Right.
so interesting, but I love that
Pictures are
that's
great.
yeah, exactly. And 4 minutes, that's incredible that's the time frame that it took, right?
Well,
Um,
and for me, the conversation around that is also exciting because I have a passion for exploring intention. And I know that my intention was to help my dad relax and heal after surgery. And it's almost as if that energetic intention was flowing through the music. And we were able to measure that through the brainwaves because we relaxed the betas, which were the active, conscious, awake frequencies, and we increased the alphas, which were you experience that in a kind of a daydream, starting to relax. So that's literally what was happening.
Yeah, I think intention, you can feel it. It ties in with like authenticity. And I mean, somebody like even Masaru Emoto, who
Mhm.
had the study with water
Right.
and the power of intention coupled with sound, and took this water and exposed it to different sounds with different intention, and it either formed these amazing beautiful crystals or it did not, based on the environment and the intention around it, right? And I can tell you from personal experience, I'm the person that my friends are like, oh, if we are on the road traveling or something of that nature, for working on a project or whatever it is, if I go in to a restaurant or something and I order something to go and I happen to see someone looks like they're maybe not having the best day and they're the person preparing my food,
Hmm.
I'm usually saying, hey, excuse me, I'm sorry, I need to cancel my order, because I believe in that transference of energy. And the person making my food, their energy and their bad
Hmm.
day is going right into my food, and
I
that's
do.
going into my body.
I totally get that. When I'm at a restaurant, I tell them, please make it with love. Please make it with love. If I'm at a sandwich shop or something, I'm like, and they're standing right there and they're putting it, please make that with lots of love. And they laugh, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, okay, I am. Totally get it.
Well, thank you very much for understanding, because I know sometimes, my friends or travel mates have been like, oh, what do you mean who cares if they're having a bad day? I'm like, well, I do,
Mhm.
because that energy is going into my food and
Yep.
I'm going to be eating that. So, no bueno on that front for me. Thank you though. But I'm like, don't let that stop you, but it's everyone's choice. But I
Mhm.
thank you for understanding that. So how important, going with intention when you are creating your music, how important is the intention aspect of that process?
Okay. Well, can I back up just a little bit and give a
Mhm.
little bit of a history as to my experience with intention,
Yes.
and why it is just, I don't know, I get on a soapbox about it. um, so after we did the research with the New Love CD, I was personally going through an inner journey to discover. Actually, it wasn't to discover, it was to move through my fears of thinking I didn't know enough theory to write my own music. All right. Um, Excuse me, I have this hair. Okay, there we go. Okay.
It's real
Um,
life.
it's totally real life. I was like,
It's real life. It happens. Yeah.
I can't move through. It's kind of crazy. All right. So I was going through this, like all this fear inside, because I'm classically trained. Oh my gosh, don't take my paper away. I can't play music unless I have paper in front of me or I memorize it. All right. But I knew there was more music inside of me that wanted to come out. So I'm diving in. I'm realizing, oh, I'm an infant at expressing this music. As infants, we learn to speak um, two syllables like mama, dad. We play with the sound. We play with our voices. Okay. And we feel it. So I'm literally, because I literally could not play two notes together when I started expressing original music. I could not play two notes. And then gradually it's like, okay, mama, dad, simple melodies, simple. I'm an infant, be gentle with myself. You're learning to communicate. Here's your sentence. Here's your phrase. Here's kind of the feeling that wants to move through. Okay. So during that time, my husband, who is also a very spiritual messenger, he shared with me some ancient healing chants. And these were chants that were used in ancient times, in sacred settings. And as he was describing what he was seeing and hearing, his voice became this highway. And it was like, it was waking something up inside of me. And I heard these melodies forming. So we went into the studio because these melodies were possessing me. They drove me crazy. It was like getting a song in your ear and you just cannot get it out. I mean, I'm driving, I'm doing dishes, and these melodies are singing me from the inside. It's like, I've got to get these out of me. So we go into the studio and we record these melodies. I had no intention at that point. I was like, please let me just sit down and birth this, whatever this is. Just get myself out of the way. Here it comes. That music turned into the Magic Mirror Inspired Reflections. So this is the CD that came out of that session. We held that CD for 2 years because whenever people listened to it, they couldn't move. It's only 23 minutes, but it took them into such a deep place of relaxation and meditation, they couldn't move. And I do transcendental meditation. I mean, I know how that feels. This takes me into a whole nother level. And we wanted to be responsible and not release something that we didn't understand to the general public. So we formed a foundation. We were developing other research. And we went back to Dr. William Collins, who did our initial pilot studies. And we said, can we do another? Let's find out what's going on with that one. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he did. And we did a pilot study. We measured QEEG of 5 women going through chemotherapy for cancer. We got a baseline measurement. They took the CD home, listened to it once a day for 10 days, came back and did measurements again. What we found was really unexpected because everyone started in different places. Some had high betas, some had low betas. You know, everybody was different. But when they came back, everything tended to normalize. So it was like they received exactly what they needed through one piece of music. It was like individualized treatment, whatever, through one piece of music. So how does that happen?
Mm-hmm.
And for me, that's the conversation about intention. Because as a musician, as a classically trained musician, I've experienced music 3 different ways. One's from my mind, playing from a mental construct, and a lot of people produce music from a mental construct. They create it in knowing that they want it, at 60 beats, per minute, because that entrains with the heart rate. They want to embed different frequencies into it because they know it will entrain the brain waves. That they're producing or they're composing from a mental construct. The other is an emotional place. And that is that heart-centered feeling, that passion, that human experience, love and religion and whatever it is that just lights you up as a human being. Okay, so that's another way. And then the third way for me is like, get out of the way, here it comes. And that's that spiritual conduit. That's just that open channel where we have no personal intention at all. It's clear of our intention and we don't have an attachment to the outcome. And for me, that's what the pilot studies with the Magic Mirror showed. Like, I didn't have an attachment to the outcome. I did not have a personal intention. Whereas with the New Love CD that I did for my dad, I did have an intention. I wanted to help him relax and heal. I had an attachment to the outcome. Mm-hmm. And that's what was moving through the music.
Yeah.
So for me personally, and everyone's different, and all 3 ways of expression has value for the listener. It's just different. And I like to empower people to just be aware or be sensitive to themselves and how they're receiving it. Because however they're receiving it is exactly how they need to be receiving it. For example, I have difficulty listening to music that have embedded frequencies. I feel it. Mm-hmm. And I feel that as it's called forced resonance, where it's forcing my natural state out of its resonant frequency, out of its natural state of being. So that's just not comfortable for me. So I personally choose not to listen to it. So it's about just staying in tune with ourselves and trusting.
I love that. And I love how you connected all of that together and what the intention meant. And then also the fact that you went on this path. So you've been on this really interesting, like I mentioned before, journey with sound and music and healing. And it's allowed your own personal development in that way as well, you know? So it's like allowing yourself to break free and listening to the heart over the head, you know, in saying, you know what, this sheet music's great, but I can do this on my own. And that freedom that comes with that, you know, of just saying, well, I have this. Let me just tap into this other place within and allow myself to maybe change the lens on how I'm seeing things.
Mm-hmm.
You know, yesterday I was sitting at a cafe working, and there was a mother and a child next to me, and I wasn't actively listening, but I happened to overhear this part. And she's like, "Well, what is the color red? Pick out the color red on here." And the little girl's like, I think it's that. And she's like, "It is that. So now you have to color this, this, and this red because these are all red objects." And she's like, "Well, why can't I color that red? And why can't this be a different?" And I was like, yeah. So, yes, yes. So, it's that programming of getting locked into that position, and then nothing else is available because that's what we know. So I love
Right.
that journey. I love that journey so much. And I love that study provided that kind of information, that we are all bio individuals and we experience things differently. So even the same piece of music, right? Same piece of music,
Yep.
different experiences and reactions to it. I love that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I just, two things just popped in my head.
Yes, yes,
Number one, I just want to follow the thread and bring the research piece to completion.
yes,
Um, so we've actually published the pilot studies. Research would also showed a sustained impact on immune system biomarkers for up to 72 hours after listening to it once. So all of that is on my website. But after the pilot studies got um, published, a friend of ours came up and she said, "Well, Amy, what's the next step?" Because all of that was done through an independent foundation, the Scientific Arts Foundation that we had formed. I said, "Well, now I'd like to do something with like a reputable, established institution." And so over the past 3 years, we've developed a protocol for newly diagnosed patients who are scheduled to receive chemotherapy. It's a feasibility study. It was approved through Washington University School of Medicine here in St. Louis. We're currently raising funds for it, and it will be implemented at Siteman Cancer Center, um, again, here in St. Louis. And it's using the magic mirror, and we're looking at also anxiety levels. And we know that it's a very small study, but it's the foundation that we're going to build so we can continue this conversation um, to go a little deeper. So that kind of brings that piece to completion. But I also see the crystal bowls behind you. And can I share a quick story?
yes, yes,
Okay.
absolutely. And
And
first of
it's
all, congratulations on that. I know we had talked outside of this, and when you told me that, I was like, yay, but congratulations again on that for sure.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And that study is going to be really exciting on a couple of levels because we're also discerning the difference between music therapy and therapeutic music. We're addressing specific components about the music that a lot of times music-based interventions research does not, they don't address that. So we really try to design the protocol in a real conscious way so we can move forward in on really solid foundations. So about the crystal bowls really quickly. Many years ago, my husband and I were at a convention, and the morning meditation was being done by somebody who played the crystal bowls. And when he started, I just literally physically, like, I told my husband, I was like, I have to leave. So I left the room because it just was not comfortable. And I didn't know why. It just did not feel comfortable. So I left. So the next morning, somebody else was doing the morning meditation and she was playing crystal bowls. And my husband leaned over and said, do you need to leave? I was like, no, I'll wait. So she started and I'm like, and my body just went open. Oh my gosh. Yes. And like every cell of my body was like, bring it in, bring it on. Oh my gosh, it was amazing. And she ended up being like just a dear soul sister from that. But I bring that up because it's not about the bowl.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
about the person sharing sound. Because again, everything that we express or share it brings that which is within us out into the world. And personally, if somebody sits down behind a bowl and it's a sea bowl and their intention is they think that they're going to open a root chakra, I'm going to feel that and I'm going to say, no, thank you. And I'm going to get up and leave. And the only reason I want to bring that in, as part of this conversation is to
Yeah.
empower people to
Mm-hmm.
listen to your body.
Mm-hmm.
And just because you have a particular kind of experience with one type of sound therapy does not mean that you will have the same kind of experience with those same like bowls or bells or gongs when somebody else is doing it. So just
Mm-hmm.
be really present in the moment. And we're changing every moment anyway. So we're never the same person we are in those two different sessions. So it's okay to get up and leave it if it's best for you.
Yeah, I love. Thank you for pointing that. I love that you just addressed that because I have encountered that, and when I've met people and we get to talking and they ask what I do, and I tell them I do integrated wellness coaching, and use a lot of different modalities, and they say, oh, that's you do sound. I don't do that. Like I tried it once and that wasn't for me, and I said, well, you know what, that one may not have been for you. I would encourage you to try it with someone else because it's like you walk into a room. There's certain rooms that you're like, this feels amazing. Other rooms, not so much. Certain people you meet and you're just attracted to them. Other people, not as much, right? And even with the bowls, the people that have told me that they've bought bowls and they don't really like them or they don't play them. And I'm like, well, why is that? Every single time. It is like the same reasons. It was either a gift from someone else, right? They didn't pick it out. They ordered it online, was the other one. Or they wanted a bowl so bad that they went to a shop. They didn't find one they were in love with, but this one was okay. But then what happens is they don't play it because it doesn't resonate with them, right? There's not that connection. So yeah, I love that you just said that because we are all different, and different people are attracted to different things, and certain things are going to fall with other people and not fall with others. So it's like, yeah, bio individuals. Or when a client comes to me and says, you helped my friend and you recommended that she do this, this, and this, and I said, well, yeah, and she's like, well, how about like, what do you think about working together? And I said, well, that's your friend. You're not your friend. You're a totally different person. So we would create a completely different path for you. So yeah, I love that you just, thank you very much for saying that and for sharing everything you're sharing. So we talked about that, and I want to talk about this too. So kind of coupled with the energy and the attention, attraction, I should say. Can you talk about the willingness and the choice that exists here in a little more detail? Because I think these things are all coupled together about either receiving or resisting, and the choice that we have to do that. And we can couple that in with the resonance of it and how we experience life through resonance. And I love the way that you make this comparison to resonance in the heart
Mhm.
and life, because it's so in alignment with my personal beliefs too.
Yeah, I love sharing this perspective. And again, as a musician, this just is natural for me. And it's been fun over the last 20 years to kind of put a language to what I'll describe now. And the reason this all came about is literally because I needed a way to describe our results with the magic mirror. I didn't have a way to describe why did everybody receive exactly what they needed through one piece of music. So here's like the bullet point definition. And I'm going to preface this by saying I am not a scientist. Like I'm not a physicist. Our son studied physics, and he's like, "Mom, you have to say that you're using these concepts metaphorically." All right, because the conversation in its scientific thread can go really, 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 really deep. And I really feel like sometimes in our world, These concepts that we talk about, like vibration and frequency and resonance, I feel like it's being shared in a way that is super, super simple, when in reality, it's really a deep conversation.
Mhm.
And I just want to apologize to the scientists who might be listening, because I do recognize my limitations. That being said, I still love this visualization and how this applies to everything that I create and how I view the world. So everything has a vibration. Everything's made from energy and atoms. And literally the simplicity is like the atom, the nucleus, the protons, the electrons, there's movement, there's movement, there's sound. And again, I apologize to the scientists. So these two tuning forks, they were made to create at 440 hertz, or they were created to sing at 440 hertz. I'm going to strike one and I'm going to put it on the harp. I'm going to put the other one right next to it. And again, it's a really simple demonstration, but it's powerful to understand it. Okay. So literally what's happening is I struck this, it started to sing, it started to move, vibrate through the air. This, because it's the same frequency, this one woke up, it's activated, right? So this is sympathetic vibration. And the key here is it has to be the same frequency. It has to be the same frequency in order for it to wake up, all right? We are full of vibrational frequencies. We are full of thoughts and beliefs and feelings and dreams and desires and fears. And one of the meditations that I love to do is to ask people, like, who are you? What are the identifiers that you use if somebody asks, what are you? What do you do? What do you love? And then to take one of those identifiers and follow the thread back of all of the experiences that you've had that are connected to that one identifier. And then realize that each one of those identifiers that you use, how you describe yourself, has threads of experiences. And it's like this harp, like we have all of these different strings and emotions and feelings, and each one has a different frequency. All right. And the frequency meaning the pitch. And so many of us don't like going down into those low frequencies, those low experiences. And from this perspective, I resist using the terms good and bad, because that's a judgment. And this is just low and this is high. It's not good or bad or better or worse. They're just different, right? So a lot of people, they're like, oh, stay in your happy place. Stay up here. Stay in the love and the light. Oh. And for me, that is so not healthy. It continues repression, and it keeps us in a place of fear from embracing the fullness of who we are. That's my big thing with conscious self-care. Just embrace the fullness of who you are with compassion, recognizing that those low notes, those low vibrations, those low experiences, those painful, traumatic, whatever it is for you, and we all have them, they create the richness of who we are because they helped us learn about ourselves. They gave us opportunity to grow and to stretch and to learn and to expand. And then we have empathy for others. So as we embrace these within ourselves, then we can hold that sacred space for other people. Because what happens in sound sessions, all of the alternative therapy sessions, I mean, it's all vibrational, is something's moving through the sound and it is sympathetically resonating these frequencies inside of us. And it's energy. That's all it is. It's energy, and it's energy moving. And if we're afraid to go into those depths, then we're going to resist We're going to resist that because we're judging it, because we've judged it all our lives and we've put labels on it. It's not right. It's shame. It's guilt. It's fear, whatever it is for you. There's that natural resistance. But as we take a deep breath and realize, oh, it's just part of the fullness of who I am, I can feel it. It's not going to kill me. Mm-hmm. It's not going to kill me. It's going to set me free. Mm-hmm. If I can allow it and just allow it in the moment. You don't have to go like I'm a treasure hunter. I just go, let me dig in there. Let me get there. But, and that's when those emotional releases and the tears and all of that, moves through. But now I'm like really gentle. It's so much easier when we're gentle with ourselves and we just feel it. And there's so many ways to move through that energy and with that energy, so that it can become part of the fullness of who we are. And the resistance comes when we're afraid. And so another conversation that I often have with different types of therapists, there's a perception sometimes or a practice of like putting ourselves in bubbles, and protecting ourselves, and whatever's comfortable for you, that's wonderful. For me personally, as a certified clinical musician, I would go into patients' rooms and so my perception is if I put myself in a bubble, then I have to ask myself why. What am I afraid of? And if I'm afraid of somebody else's energy, that just tells me I'm afraid of that within myself. Because truly, it's just a mental thing because we're all connected. Mm-hmm. You can't separate truly the energy. It's like this big soup, we're all in it together. All right. Mm-hmm. And I remember playing for this mother who was dying of cancer, and her children, they were little. They were like, I don't know, like 5, like maybe 3 and 5. And they were by her bed. And I was a mother. I am a mother, but at the time my kids were about that age. And like my greatest fear is something happening to me, or being left alone. And that's tied to me being adopted. And that's a whole other story, but it's like all tied together, all of our past experiences we bring in every moment, bring into every moment. So I could feel myself tearing up. I could feel myself getting triggered because that energy was awakening within me. But I was present enough to realize, Amy, you're here to support her right now. So recognize it, put it a little bit aside, and you can deal with that afterwards. But right now, get in alignment. And my mantra is like clear, clean, and connected. I want to be clear within myself, clean and connected to that highest energy that wants to move through. And I was able to like shift my personal fears out of the way so I could be present for her, knowing that I was going to go and address that. I recognized that was my fear. And then I went and I did my personal work around it.
That's fantastic. And that's such a huge thing. I think just having the awareness within to know like, oh, this is happening and this is why this is happening. And I need to set this aside in a container for now so I can hold space in this other environment. That's such a huge awakening and awareness to come to, is just having that, just knowing that
Mm-hmm.
is what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I love your mantra, by the way. I think that's awesome.
Yeah. Clear, clean, and connected. And the funny thing is it's been my mantra for years, but it keeps spiraling. It's just such a deeper level of awareness, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting time in general, and I think a lot of people seem to be a little more aware of where they're at, and acknowledging their journey and those experiences that we're talking about, right? Mm-hmm. And not trying to just say, oh, it doesn't exist. And the more we resist anything, the more it's going to come our way. It's like you said, everything's energy, and the however we attend to the energy in front of us, whether we are resisting it, because sometimes it takes even more energy to resist something and it just pushes harder back at you. And you're like, oh, I'm not paying any attention to this, but it's shoving you. And you're like, so that could take even more energy to resist something, right? But like you said, it's there, it's on the path, and just
Mhm.
it's part of your experience without judgment.
Mhm.
And just move through it. It's just part of the whole, you know.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I will tell you, if you don't, for me, I didn't listen when I kept wanting to resist, and my body said, "Uh-oh, no." So, here comes my first of two cancer diagnosis, which
Hmm.
was an excuse to slow down and continue to turn the mirror, to continue to look in, remembering how to love myself again. It's all part of that journey of self-discovery.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree with you, and it's my path's been that as well. The lessons that come in front of me that I'm like, and move beyond. I keep experiencing those, and then it finally clicked one day that why is this a theme in my life? Why does this keep happening? Well, because I haven't learned the lesson it's presenting yet. And I don't recall who said it, maybe Mother Teresa, but somebody said something to the effect of every person that comes into your life, and I think you can expand that into every experience. Everything that comes into your life is either a blessing or a lesson. And I think when we embrace the lessons and we're willing to learn from them, right? Then those are blessings too, because now we can move forward. you know, it's like, okay, here we go. So,
Absolutely. And I feel like we're a lot of people are aware right now too of the fullness of who we are and this epigenetic line that we embody. So I know we used to joke with our kids because we've been doing this for 30 years. And so when our kids were young or when they were teenagers, and I'd be going through like an emotional release or doing my processing, and because we're very open and we very emotional and expressive family. And I would say things like, I'm doing all this work so you don't have to. Because like I know, like I'm looking at these patterns so you don't have to look at them. We're just clearing this line.
well, I hope they appreciate that because that's a
They
big
do.
gift. Yes, that is a big gift for sure. So let me ask you, earlier on in the conversation, we had talked a little bit about entrainment. And that's a topic that keeps coming up more and more. And honestly, it could be coming up more and more just in the circles of the people I'm talking to because they're in this path with us and part of this journey too. So maybe that's why I'm hearing it more, is just because the people I'm talking to are working on it. But can you tell us a little bit about what that means in the different areas that we can entrain?
Sure. So for me, uh, I hear a lot of people using the word entrainment as synonymous with sympathetic vibration. Two objects of the same frequency come into close proximity, creates this resonance system. That it creates this. Um, it's a resonance system when these two objects come together. So this aspect of sympathetic vibration is something that we experience all the time. Everything has a frequency, or has a vibrational frequency, and it's like, what color am I sympathetically resonating with? And that's what we feel. We use the language of feeling synonymously. Like, I feel like wearing this, I sympathetically resonate with wearing this. I feel like eating this, I sympathetically resonate with that type of food. I feel like being around this person, I sympathetically resonate with being around this person. But the idea of entrainment is the rhythmic aspect of that. So it's like a similar idea, you're matching, but it's a rhythmic aspect. And so we have three main rhythmic systems in our body: the brain waves, the breathing, and the heart rate. And these systems entrain with each other, they match. So we experience entrainment all the time as well. Our voice is a rhythm. We've all listened to people who actually they slow down so much, they talk so slowly, and you just kind of want to go to sleep. And it may be in a lecture hall at school, it may be wherever it is, that their rhythm, their pace of their voice, and your brain is like, oh, I'm just going to sleep. And other people talk so fast that you can't even catch up, um, because that's a rhythm. And music, that's one of the main components of music that affect us physiologically is that rhythmic aspect, because our heartbeat entrains, and our breathing and our brain waves entrain with that rhythmic aspect. So entrainment is the rhythmic aspect of resonance.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for that very much. So let me ask you about music.
Mhm.
Why do you think, and I mean, you've got studies behind you now with your own music, right? Music's been such an important part of your experience and I think a lot of people's experience, right? I mean, one of the places that we talked to was like the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and why people spend so much money and travel from all over the world just to see like a shirt or like a sheet of paper with notes written on it from someone that played music that
Mhm.
they connected to. So, why do you think music impacts us the way it does?
It's on so many levels. Um, Number one, it's the soundtrack of our lives. And we start in utero with music, the heartbeat, the mother. So for me, I see us as music because we literally embody every element of music. We embody melody and rhythm and timbre and dynamics and harmony and texture and structure and expression and silence. I mean, we embody all of the components of music. So we are music. And then when we have life experiences, whether it's lullabies or church or high school dances, we have this emotional connection that hooks up when we hear the music. And those become the memories then that get sympathetically activated when we hear it again. We hear a piece of music and here come the memories. And that's why, listening to familiar music affects us in ways that are predictable because we've had experiences with that music before. And we know that those are going to elicit specific responses from us physiologically, neurologically, biochemically, because we've had them before. And when we listen to new music or unfamiliar music, then we have new experiences. And so that's one of the conversations too that I love to have with people, is because so many people are wanting to experience this deeper sense of peace and calm. And I always encourage them, well, if you want to choose music, because music has the melodic aspects versus the tones or the sound healing. The tones go right into the body, but the music goes into the mind. It's the melodic aspect. So I feel like music is more like an umbrella for me, and sound healing and tonal aspects are more like lasers that like go right into the body.
Yeah.
Um, and to choose music without words or music maybe with chants that you might not understand, the language, so that those beta waves don't engage as much. They can just relax, and then be aware of the rhythmic aspect. you know if you want to relax, you're not going to do a lot of drumming. So be conscious of that. The key of the music, this is very open, it's a major, versus which is a minor. So the major takes you outside, it's kind of happy. The minor takes you inside, it's more reflective. Um, so again, those are just some ideas when you consciously want to use music to experience a certain feeling.
Yeah, thank you for those tips. Those are really great tips. I appreciate that very much. So, Amy, what about you? What are some of your personal favorite sounds? It can be something in nature, it can be music, it can be whatever it is for you. What are some of your favorite sounds that when you hear them, it feels like nothing else matters?
Honestly, the first thing that popped into my head is silence. I mean, for me, dropping into
Mhm.
the depths of all possibility, where nothing is manifested yet, but everything is potential. Oh, my head is just going, ooh. Um, so that's my favorite. And then, like, we have the bird feeder outside. I love I love the birds. Um, and again, it depends on where I am because like some one of my most powerful sound meditations personally was with the Halo game soundtrack. It was like this epic, oh man, the guitars and the voices and it was just I was just at a place where I was ready for that sound and that music to just get inside because I was ready for that resistance to open. And literally I felt that music. I had these pictures of the DNA and like all the strands were just like falling off and all the old stories. It was like this internal cleansing. Um, so in that moment, that was my favorite sound. It was like this, it just gave me goosebumps. So it just depends on where I am.
That makes a lot of sense to me. It really, really does. And I can relate with the silence aspect to that too. There's so much power in just silence for
Mhm.
sure. So, where do you think sound will be used in the future? Like, how do you think it will be used?
Well, I feel like it's being used right now too with like ultrasounds. I'm sure that it'll be integrated more into our medical system. Um, Again, I know the conversations, because science is what it is, it's about finding that mechanism. Um, and we might find it, I mean, they're already using familiar music with Alzheimer's. In my language, for me, that makes so much sense because it's sympathetically resonating those memories. Um, Again, it's finding the language to describe the effect. Um, and so I'm sure it will be integrated. It it may take longer than some of us envision it. Um, and again, the expression of music is so unique. The highways that are created are so unique. Like it's hard to duplicate. Like there's studies using live harp music in different settings in the hospital that elicit, lower blood pressure, lower amounts of medication. There's all sorts of wonderful responses. And for me, that's like, well, yeah, that's entrainment. That makes sense. That's wonderful. Um, but you can have different responses, like you said, from the same piece of music played by two different musicians, because the highway is going to be different. And that's what I'm passionate about. I'm not necessarily attached to the outcome of what the research is showing. I'm excited about the conversation um, that helps us to just keep exploring. And I know people will just be using, that's one of the reasons why the alternative complementary therapies are moving forward, because people are doing it. They're finding ways that support themselves.
Mm-hmm.
When I went through breast cancer, I loved my oncologist because she knew kind of how I was. um, and she was very medical, you know, but I went to her and I told her everything I was doing. The music was fine. The acupuncture was fine. The Chinese herbs, she had a little bit of questions, but she approved it. That was fine. The high doses of melatonin, she questioned it, but I provided her research because I had other people who provided me with that research. So that was fine. When I went to her and I said, okay, so to detox from like the chemotherapy, can I go to a salt room? And she's like, um, maybe we could wait on that one. And so, but it was like being open and having those conversations because she was learning through me. So
Mm-hmm.
I feel like patient advocacy, open communication with your healthcare providers will help move things along.
Yeah, I love that. I absolutely love that. I know some of my doctor friends are on the front lines of that, and yeah, absolutely big proponents of it. So I think we're all students, we're all teachers, you know,
Absolutely.
for sure. Absolutely. So, is there anything else that you would like to share that we haven't touched base on?
Um, right now, I feel very full. I'm just so grateful for
Oh my
this
gosh.
time with you.
Yeah,
Um,
likewise. It's like energizing. I'm like, So yeah, I really appreciate it. And I understand, did you want to play something?
yeah, I'd love to
Okay.
just share a little bit, just to
Okay.
kind of, and again, when I sit down and play, I never know like what, so we'll just see what comes out.
Oh, that was so beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much for that gift. That was amazing. Amazing. And I will tell you, when I first started, I was just breathing deeply, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I think my mic's still on, so I should stop. So if it interfered in some way, I apologize. But that was so like it was transcending. It like totally took me to another place. So thank you.
You're
Very
welcome. It felt
magical.
wonderful. It felt wonderful.
I appreciate it. Yeah. So, Amy Camie, where can people find you?
I'm website is amycamie.com, and I'm on LinkedIn. I have a Facebook page, Amy Camie, the Healing Harpist, and I have a lot of live videos. I'm basically an open book, so there's a lot of access to videos and music, and you can just search my name anywhere you listen to music, and you'll find some more.
And you're on Bandcamp and
Mhm.
Spotify, correct? Okay. Yeah. And I'll tell you, if you haven't visited her site yet, there's so much awesome information on it and music. So I would highly recommend it. But thank you so much for taking the time out today and for sharing your energy and your passion and all of it and the work that you do. So excited to see where this journey goes and wishing you the best of luck for the clinical trial through Washington University School in St. Louis. So we're excited to follow that journey too. So thank you.
Thank you. It's been a joy,
All right. Well, hopefully we will connect sooner than later, Amy. Thank you.
definitely.